If you are constantly measuring, ask yourself, why? Comparison is exhausting. It steals peace. It distorts purpose. Maybe the stress you feel is not because of them. Maybe it is because you are trying to measure something that was never meant to be compared. Growth requires humility. Abundance requires security. Grace requires maturity. So jump the fence, find your people, build with those who pour. Welcome to another episode on the Leadership Lab, and this time I'm doing it solo. And I wanted just to kind of have a conversation with you around grace. Now, before I get into that, really excited that on March 2nd, if you go to my website at asbelmontes.com, you can actually pre-order my first book. It's not going to be the first. It'll be one of many, but excited about this one. It's called In Plain Sight, and it is a personal discussion on my journey towards grace. Now, not grace as we see it, or that you might even think around the concept of grace, but really about you can't really give grace to others until you give grace to yourself. And so many times we're wondering and we have questions why there's so much lack of compassion, why there's so much of a me mentality in the world that we live right now. And that is because many times it's just a lack of grace. And it's a hard discussion that you have to have with yourself on that journey to it. And I started this journey a lot longer than I thought, but really the pivotal point in my life happened in 2020. And that was relative to the pandemic, COVID. But more, it was battling the addictions that my daughter had on her journey and road to recovery. And so I get really raw and personal in it, but it's written in such a way that I tried to write it in such a way that you could read it on a 3-hour plane ride. Or a really quick read on a Saturday afternoon if you spent 3 or 4 hours reading it as well. So I hope you enjoy it. You can order it or pre-order it today at asbelmontes.com. All right, so let's get into it. Let's kind of talk a little bit about grace. What does that actually mean? I want to read to you something that I posted on my social media channels. If you're not following me invite you to or not, but on any of my social media channels, whether it's Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, I pinned this a few days ago, and I wanted to just read it to you here if you're watching or listening to my podcast. But I said, we are not the same. You are not my competition. If you are silently measuring my influence, my reach, my relationship, my wins to see if you have more, we are not the same. There is an old story. Some people check your cup to see if they have more than you. Others check your cup to see if you need more. I have no desire to sit in circles where comparison is currency. I have jumped the fence. The circle I want is made up of leaders who pour into one another, who clap when you win, who correct in private, who celebrate in public, who understand that growth is collaborative, not competitive. If you are constantly measuring, ask yourself, why? Comparison is exhausting. It steals peace. It distorts purpose. Maybe the stress you feel is not because of them. Maybe it is because you are trying to measure something that was never meant to be compared. Growth requires humility. Abundance requires security. Grace requires maturity. So jump the fence, find your people, build with those who pour. So this was a reflection. There was a meeting that I went to in November of 2025. And so I had joined a group of high capacity leaders with the John Maxwell team. And John Maxwell is for you that may not know him, is a phenomenal leadership guru. He comes from a faith-based background. He was a former pastor that now is a worldwide leadership coach. And he has created, in his later years, a mentorship program where he is building legacy that will far outlive him in his present life, but impacting others. And I was at this meeting, and I almost didn't go. I'm just busy with work or what have you. And I just felt that urge. My business partner and I were going and just leaned into it. And I went. And the first day I'm sitting there listening to others. It was good content. But then John Maxwell got up there and started to speak about jumping the fence. And here's the general premise. When he started, I was enthralled. I actually got a little choked up through the process. And generally speaking, I've always been one to hide my emotions. I was raised that way. My dad, loved my dad, but he was, a toughing it up guy. And you didn't really show emotions a lot. And so being a Hispanic, I'm Puerto Rican by nature, and we're highly emotional. So I speak with my hands. I talk. I'm loud. When I get excited, I get loud, and people think, why are you shouting? And I'm really not. We're just excited. All of us are like that. But he got up there, and I got emotional because he said, jump the fence. He said, some of you have been staying behind the fence because you have been told, don't, you're so far ahead, your mind moves so quickly ahead, people can't keep up with you. So you intentionally hold back on what you have been called to do, that purpose, because you're waiting for others to come. You're trying to bring others along with you. And he said, some of you need to jump the fence because the crowd that you're supposed to be with is up ahead and you're staying back. The individuals that are with you now cannot keep up with you, and you are stalling your growth forward. And so that hit home to me because I remember back in it was probably 2016, there was a leadership coach and group that had come into the organization that I was working at the time, and they were doing leadership profiles on everyone. And I remember getting my leadership profile back, and it said, you lead from an island. And I remember looking at that, and I remember being offended at first, thinking, what do you mean I'm leading from an island? And it basically said, you see things so far ahead and you just run and you forget that the individual's behind you. And so you've just ran ahead. And then what happens is you're not a leader anymore. You're leading from an island because they couldn't keep up with you, so they stopped following you. And it basically indicated what you have to do is keep looking behind you and then go back and try to bring them along. And I have been literally doing that for the last, it hit home because I did understand some of the truth of it, even though I was a little irritated that, what do you mean I'm leading from an island? I saw some truth in that. And so I've intentionally, if I see things, will stop, pivot, go back, try to bring others along with me on the journey until November of 2025, when John Maxwell said, you need to jump the fence. The people that you should be with are way ahead. Now, if you want to come back and check them and you want to come back to the fence and check on people, do that, but don't stay behind the fence. That released me. There was something about that. I still kind of get that. I don't know if you've ever felt those feelings of like, some people call it, man, I'm goosing right now. I literally, as I'm talking about that, I'm feeling that same sensation, that it was a pivotal moment for me. It was a pivotal moment to say, Asbel, the people that you should be with are beyond the fence. So until you jump over it, you'll never get to where you're supposed to be. In November, I jumped the fence. And it doesn't mean that I didn't leave behind the individuals that were there. I just said, I'll come check on you when you're ready to jump the fence with me. Or if you want to stay behind the fence in the comfort of the fence and the protection of the fence, stay. That's okay. It literally is okay. It's not wrong. Not everybody wants to jump the fence. Some people like the environment, the safe space that they've created around them. I get it. I don't want to stay in that safe space. I want to grow. I want to lean into the uncomfortable winds of change. And so I jumped the fence. And that is what really understanding the meaning of grace is to jump the fence. It is easy to stay in the comfort. It is easy to stay where people like you, where they're singing your praises, where you're making monumental change. But when you jump the fence and you move into other arenas, it's uncomfortable because sometimes you're moving into circles where people really don't know you. Maybe they've just heard about you, but they've never really gotten to know you. And it's uncomfortable because I'm having to lean into it. I'm having to learn more. I'm having to interact with individuals who challenge my narrative, my thought process. Sometimes I'm intimidated by those individuals because they're brilliantly smart and they have so much more understanding of things that I just have yearned to understand. And what happens is where I may have been in the top tier, I'm now in the bottom tier, but I'm learning. And I've leaned into that. And I don't see that as an inhibitor anymore. I see that as saying, you know what? Asbel, you have a voice. Asbel, you have a desire. And people want to pour into you. The reason why that's not happening is because you've been pouring into others and others haven't been pouring into you. And so what happens is you get burned out. Like they say, your cup is empty. And sometimes you're around others who are looking in your cup to see, is my cup fuller than theirs? We're not the same.
This episode is sponsored by Solutions Group Services, healthcare leaders' go-to source for maximizing reimbursement and inspiring innovation. At Solutions Group Services, our technology and consulting expertise help organizations recover millions in hidden revenue without disrupting their workflow. Through our flagship AI-powered tech product, Black Ink, we reveal the dollars stuck in insurance claims and give you the map to get them back. Because for healthcare leaders, they know leaving money on the table isn't an option for their organization. Learn more at solutionsgroup.com and discoverblackink.com.
And so somebody sent me a clip about a month ago of a video that talked about this exact story. And it resonated with me. And so I started to write. I started to blog about it. And it was very reminiscent of things coming into my life as my book is beginning to be released about being real and open and in plain sight. That's why I talk about that, because I'm okay. I'm comfortable sharing. I'm comfortable being as transparent as possible because we grow and we grow through others' stories. That's how I grow. That was the pivotal point of my journey. Had John Maxwell not said, some of you need to jump the fence. He did not know at that day, and I have not had a chance to tell him, and I'm going to tell him because I'm going to see him here in a few more weeks as part of this mentorship program. But I want to tell him that has forever impacted my life. Jump the fence. Because the individuals that I need to be with that are going to encourage my growth are ahead of me. And as the scriptures say, iron sharpens iron. And so I want to be around other individuals who are iron. There's sometimes that we're figuring out, why am I not growing? Why am I not moving forward? Is because what's happened is you've gotten around individuals who are comparing, they're competitive. They don't even sometimes realize that that's happening. I watch what people say, their actions of what they do. Can you celebrate other people's wins? Or are you internally looking in envious of their wins, of what have you? Stay away from people like that. They don't even realize that their insecurity is damaging them, but it's also damaging those that are close to them, because sometimes you'll shrink into yourself because I don't want to upset the individuals around me. Sometimes that can be family. Sometimes that can be your best friends. Sometimes that can be work colleagues. Sometimes that can even be people that you may not know, but maybe you go out with them once a quarter or you have dinner with them. And generally when you leave, you're thinking, man, all they talked about was themselves the entire time. I've been guilty of that. And if we all are honest with ourselves in the mirror, we would admit we're all guilty of it. But once you recognize that there is some type of character trait, there's some type of flaw in the process, you need to step back and think, okay, I need to reflect. I'm constantly reflecting. Is there something I could do better? Is there something that I said that could have been offensive to them when I understand that something's happened to the relationship. I was a part of an event recently where I was in several meetings or what have you. And I remember on the first night, I remember thinking and looking around, and we were doing a reception. There was a cocktail hour happening. And that's just the most interesting time to really understand and be aware of people, especially when individuals are imbibing on alcohol and other things. It's just interesting, the display of humanity. And you begin to see different nuances. You begin to see individuals who were self-reflecting, individuals who the true content of who they were begin to come out when it was literally all about what they did. And I remember after an hour and a half of that, I had to get out of the environment. I remember later that evening after I'd had dinner with a small group of people, I immediately went back to my room and I was disturbed all night. And I remember thinking, this is not who I am. And 10 years ago, Asbel would have been participating in all that. Asbel would have been caught up in the crisis of the moment, trying to fix, trying to see how we could get ahead, how we could play the game. I used to say, I'm a chess player. I'm a long game guy. I'm not a checkers player. I play chess. You play checkers. I'll figure out a way and I'll checkmate you. That is not the person I want to be. Grace says, you are worth it. You are more than the circumstance around you. And I remember, and this just recently happened. And so I immediately began to write it out, what was quickened into my spirit in the night. And I wrote this, and I just basically said, don't let the chaos around you distract you from compassion. And I said, compassion, it's one word with so much meaning. It's grace, it's mercy, it's love, it's hope. It's all wrapped up in the action of compassion. Because compassion is found through that action of kindness. We must never lose our humanity. We see people for what they can be, not necessarily where they are right now. My prayer every day as a leader is that I never lose sight of humanity, because the three characteristics of leadership that I want working in me are compassion, grace, and humility. I don't always get it right, but I have accountability partners that hold me accountable. They help me see my blind spots and offer me constructive guidance. So today I'm encouraging you. Have compassion, have grace, and above all of it, have humility. And humility is not a sign of weakness. And many times right now we're seeing in society that it's like, if you're not harsh, if you're not brutal, if you're not demeaning, if you're not constantly fighting. I mean, we see it in the halls of Congress. We see it in the executive branch. We see it in corporations right now. I'm not sure what is happening, I am sure what's happening. But this display of current leadership that is antagonistic, it's always confronting, it's prideful. The scriptures say that pride comes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. And I may have gotten that backwards. But what it's saying is a proud spirit only lasts for so long. Humility is what it means to have compassion. You cannot have compassion and be prideful. You cannot have grace and be prideful. It's one or the other. And so I desire to be a leader of humility. And so come join me. Come join me on this journey of humility and grace, specifically this grace journey, but you can't start it until you reflect. And so what happens is when anything happens, whether it's at my job, whether it's the company that I'm leading, whether it's in my personal, whether it's in my leadership journey, if there's something that happens or transpires, I'm constantly going into reflection mode. It just happened. I just got back from a work journey and there were some things that went on. I immediately reflected and said, what did I contribute to any of that? Is there something that I did? Could I have taken another action? Could I have left the space, just said, hey, enjoy it, it's wonderful, and just move on? That is my personal journey. I can protect what I say and what happens around me. I can say no. And no, period, is a kind response. I don't have to say no and explain myself. I can just say no. I'm not participating in that. So come join me on this journey of grace. If you want to also visit my website, asbelmontes.com. Would love to have you on this journey as well. And maybe if you want, purchase my book. It'll give you a little bit more insight into this journey of grace. Thank you for joining.